We're at a little bit of a scary spot on the stochastic. This is the Bitcoin weekly, and we are right here. The fast line's at 21 and the slow line's at 39. We still do have a handful of days left in this week before this candle closes out, but this momentum is obviously very bearish. But that being said, we're a lot closer to the bottom than the top, at least in terms of numerically here. But if you stay on the bottom, this is where a lot of damage can be done. Let's take a look at the last time that we were roughly at these numbers on the weekly. You can see how, let me move this a little bit. You can see how we came down and we spent a couple of months really down here. And this action was really bearish. We still dropped from this point. We still dropped another 22, 23% before going back up. So we have to be weary of something like that. At the same time, there are instances where we come down and then we come back up very quickly. So in this case, this vertical line that's green, this would be a good time to actually buy. We were at this level, in this case 28 and 48, but then we bounced and there was a really nice gain in store from this point. So it's not that it's a guarantee that this is like some sort of a death sentence, but we went up 78% last time this happened in this particular way. And this was January of 24. So what I think is more important is if you pair where we're at on the 1 week with where we're at on the 2 week, because the 2 week gives a bigger picture as well. And I've identified here maybe times where we're at the same place on the 1 week and you'd want to sell, There's still more bearish action to be had. This one was bullish though. But as I move over, here's another instance, and there's still a good amount more downside in store here. We went from 28,000 down to 25, so really not too bad in this instance. But then we had just kind of a weaker bounce and continued down even further. But let's scroll back here. Here's another instance where this was really bad. So in this particular case, we dropped, at its low, we dropped another 50%, right? So we do have to be weary of what this means, and where we're at on the 2 week can really help put this into perspective. And so here's another time where we came down, but it was okay, and we held. We held support even as this continued to come down for a number of weeks. So we want to look for if we can hold support here and not just continue down. This could be very bullish depending on where we're at with the 2 week. So let's take a look at where we're at with the 2 week relative to the 1 week. So here's the 2 week. The 2 week is going to be ending this Sunday as well. The 1 week and the 2 week both close. And this is not great because we were at 89 and 80 and we're coming back down, and actually the blue line, the fast line, would be closing below the slow line. So technically pretty bearish, right? Typically these sorts of runs stop at the end of the 2 week and when the 2 week starts to decline after it tops out. So anyways, how does this compare? Right? If we do close around this range, is this a death sentence or is it not? Well, let's take a look here. Here's where we were. Again, like the lines here, the vertical lines indicate we're at the same exact point on the 1 week as we're at right now. But how does the 2 week line up? Well, we're much farther along in this scenario in the 2 week. So it makes sense that this was bearish. We're just potentially starting the decline on the 2 week. Here is a situation where, again, we're much farther along on the 2 week. We already had some real bullish action of the 2 week staying up here for a long time, and now we've moved down below 68 and 80, whereas we haven't had the flattening out at all. Not that we're guaranteed to get it, but typically once you have a flattening out and then you start to decline, there's a much higher likelihood that a run is over. Here was the other indication of when we are on the same place on the weekly, but look at the 2 week. The 2 week is just hanging out strong, pretty flat up top, where this is actually crossing back down below 80 on the fast line. So not apples to apples here. This situation, this was not too bad, but short-term bearish. But again, we'd already had a bit of a run here or we haven't had that yet. Over here, the 2-week was down low, and actually, yeah, this was a very big sell signal. So anyways, we'll come back to this. And here is the one situation that actually could mimic what we're about to do. What time frame is this? This is 2020, August of 2020, before our big run to the blow off top in 2021. I understand this was a technical higher high, but really this was your blow off top. And what happened here? Right? We came up. Now we did have certainly more history. Like, we don't have that history now. But take a look at the 2-week, right? So this green means we're at the same spot on the weekly stochastic as we are now. But the 2-week crossed down, and it crossed down pretty sharply. We were at 98, and we came down, and we actually even bounced off of 70. So both of these came down and closed below 80. We did have this initial drop right here, but then we held that as support, and we started stacking a couple of green candles, even on the 2-week. So that would be a huge indication that things are bullish. Even if we come down and we drop, then we start holding week after week, or even a couple of 2-week candles as green here, indicating that this 2-week is likely going to bounce back up and cross up. And it could be the very beginning of our blow off top. We are at that same point technically in the cycle, and this gave you a price increase of 530%. And that's, of course, after it had already increased a fair amount from the market bottom over here, even your technical double bottom. This is from COVID. So if we close the way we're looking like we could close on the 2-week right now, and the weekly is a little more set in stone, this is the situation that we hope aligns with what we're experiencing. Even if we get this drop, right? Even if we get a drop into 100 or 90 something, we have to start stacking some positive price action, and we can't breach below that anymore, and we need this to turn back up. And if so, we could be doing a 2x or more.